Alrighty, I believe we are ready to go. Welcome everybody to our Xero User Hour this week. My name is Jeri Murphy and I'm obviously bringing Xero User Hour to you today for the Australian New Zealand Xero users, or if you're on the other side of the world, you might be a Xero user that just happens to be awake during our Australian and New Zealand Xero User Hour time slot. We also do run Xero User Hour in the UK at 1 p.m. every Wednesday UK time. We run that on Twitter. It's on a live session like this, but this is our live broadcast. And today I'm bringing to you everything that there is to know about Xero in relation to fixed assets. We're going to talk about, and I'm going to show you Xero fixed assets in the inside the Xero application. And we're also going to have a chat about one of the add-ons that was recently featured in our issue 7 of XU magazine, which is an add-on called Asset Guru. We're just going to have a bit of a look around and show you the difference and between what Asset Guru is as an add-on to Xero as to what Xero does as a fixed asset itself. So a little bit of housekeeping before I get into our first topic. If you have any questions at all, you can enter them in the chat panel to the right-hand side of the window pane, or the TV screen that you're the video screen that you're watching on. So on the right-hand side, you should be able to see that there. It should have the XU symbol and say something or chat box or something. You'll see my welcome note there that says welcome everybody to Xero User Hour. Now, at any time, you can type a question in that chat panel. That chat panel is available for questions about what I'm talking about today, or just any questions that you might have about Xero or add-ons or anything to do with the Xero ecosystem. This is Xero User Hour, so feel free to ask anything that you want. I'm here to tell you information about a topic that I've picked today. We've covered lots of different things over the different Xero user hours that we have run, and today I'm talking about fixed assets, but I would love that you can, if you're welcome, to ask any question that you want around anything else that we're going to that we can cover around the Xero ecosystem. So it can be something that's a beginner question, that's an advanced question, whatever it is that you have a question about. If I can't answer it right now, I can certainly get back to you. Now, the other thing as well is that this session is being recorded obviously for you. You'll be able to watch this back on live stream for the next 30 days right on this page right here, or it will be uploaded to the XU magazine YouTube channel as well. So that's available to you there to watch back later on if you need to. So if you can't make it for the whole session, don't stress. You can watch the recording back on XU Magazine YouTube's channel. Now, while I'm mentioning XU Magazine, I am the Australian and New Zealand correspondent for XU Magazine. XU Magazine is who is bringing you this session today, and it's a magazine for Xero users by Xero users. And if you want to get a copy of your free version or free copy, all subscriptions are free, of XU Magazine, then go to xumagazine.com and you can sign up to a subscription there. It's either a digital version or a print version, and that's obviously who's bringing us this session today. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to have a chat about fixed assets inside Xero. Now, this conversation about fixed assets really started for me last week when I brought up the fact that I was teaching some people about a topic in Xero last week, in Xero User Hour last week. It was all around end of financial year because we've just come into the new financial year here in Australia. And we were talking about the fact of what you would do at the end of a financial year. And one of those things I said, well, look, as a business owner, you can go into your asset register. You can look at your different assets in the asset register and mark them on the asset register if you want to. But this is usually something that your accountant does at the end of the year. So that then triggered off the fact that now, well, let's talk about how it is that you can manage fixed assets inside Xero. That then opened up the discussion for me being, okay, well, if we're going to manage the assets in Xero, what's this add-on called Asset Guru all about? How is it different to Xero? So let's have a look at that. So first of all, let's just have a brief understanding of what the fixed assets is all about. Fixed assets inside Xero is the ability, it gives you the ability to keep track of the assets that you've purchased, and when you buy those assets, you can give them a depreciation rate, and you can calculate the depreciation of those assets over a period of time. This is something that your accountant would usually do for you at the end of the financial year. If you get a company financial statements, for example, and you've got a page in it called the depreciation schedule, that depreciation schedule is going to have a list of all of the assets that you've purchased and how much they've been depreciated by, which means how much of that cost that you've expensed so far. So if you've bought something for $2,000, I'm not going to use actual terms as to rates and numbers and things like that. Let's just keep it simple for explanation purposes. So let's say you've bought something for $2,000, you expect it to have an effective life of 4 years. That means that you can claim $500 per year over 4 years, because you're allowed to claim it's going to go down in value by a quarter, by $500 every single year, because it's got an effective life of 4 years. Okay, so that's what the depreciation in a nutshell. All right, so what this asset register is doing is saying what you bought, when you bought it, how much you paid for it, what depreciation you've claimed already, how much depreciation you have left to claim, and it's taking you through that process until the end of the life of that item. The other thing as well, of course, if you sell an asset, then you need to be able to tell Xero that you've sold the asset, and then it calculates the gain or loss on the sale of that asset and puts that into your accounting system for you. This is something that accountants used to have to do at the end of financial year and do it all for you. Xero has brought that position, or that feature, I should say, in-house so that you can actually do it yourself. Let me just bring up a example of the depreciation schedule inside Xero so you can see what it looks like when it prints out on a report. So on the report says the depreciation schedule. So here's our depreciation schedule with the assets that are in our demo company so far. We've got two different asset types. We've got computer equipment and office equipment, and we've got the cost of these items here. So we've got the name. Let's just go through the first one. We've got the name of the asset number, so it has an identification number, the type, the asset type that it falls under. That's generally the same as the header here, but it doesn't have to be. You've got the cost of the item, so how much you paid for it, less GST or excluding GST in the first place, the rate of depreciation, the method of depreciation, when it was actually purchased, the date it was purchased, and then we're looking at this point from the 1st of July to the end of July. So we're saying at the beginning of July it was worth $6,500. If you were applying your depreciation over this period of time, then your depreciation would be held here, and then you'd have lesser value. So at the end of July, your item is worth less than what it was worth at the beginning of July, because most assets depreciate in value. So this is the idea of the depreciation schedule, is it's keeping track of all of that for you. Now, what that means as well is that if you have a lot of assets and you've got quite a decent amount of depreciation that you can claim throughout the year, you can actually run depreciation inside Xero on a monthly basis, which means that it's going to actually calculate the depreciation for you and give you a fair idea of what the tax deduction might be, or the actual accounting depreciation might be for that asset throughout the month. Also on your monthly reports, you've actually included that in. In other systems, if it doesn't include a fixed asset register like this, like Xero does, you would actually need to go and calculate the depreciation separately on a spreadsheet that looks a lot like this screen I'm showing you now. Calculate depreciation and your assets separately, then you would put in the depreciation on the spreadsheet, then you would journal that depreciation into Xero or into whatever accounting system you're using in order to produce the monthly reports. Xero is doing all of that for you. Now, the other thing that it does as part of helping you manage this depreciation process is that whenever you buy an asset and you put an asset to a fixed asset account inside Xero, it's going to automatically populate the fixed asset register, or the draft tab of the fixed asset register, with the asset details that you have put on here. So here we've got a laptop for Tracy, which is under computer equipment, for $19.69, and here we've got desk, chairs, and reception furniture for the office. That's actually quite a lot of things. You might want to break that down into different things if you think you're going to buy and sell, sell those assets separately. You might actually break those down. But for now, let's just have a look at this. So I've got Tracy's laptop. We'll just click on this asset here. It's going to take us through to the asset registration screen. And in here, I'll show you all of the different fields that you can record for an asset. So we've got our asset name up the top. That's going to come through automatically when you put a description on an item. That's going to actually populate in here. I'll actually show you an example after we've looked through these values so that you can see what it looks like inside, well, when you create what's actually creating that draft transaction, what fields are going to do that. We'll do that shortly. So here we've got the asset name. So this is the laptop and it's been designated to Tracy. You might leave that here in here, or you might write more detail about what exactly type laptop it is, a MacBook Pro 2016 or whatever it is. And then here with the Tracy, you might put elsewhere, which you'll see the different fields available in a moment. In the asset number, you've got an automatically generated asset number, which is automatically being generated by Xero when you buy it. It's going to give you that next asset register. If you need to ever edit the automatic sequencing or write over it, then if you need to write over it, you can just type in here and write over it. But if you want to change the automatic sequencing, change the number, the prefix, or change the number, then you can do that for the automatic sequencing to start from a separate point if you choose to. The purchase date is going to come from the transaction date. If that transaction date was different to when you actually bought it, let's say you've got a bill and you need to, well, if you haven't, maybe you didn't enter the asset purchase in as a bill, that means that the asset is going to go in as being purchased at the time that when you paid for the bill. That's if you do a spend money transaction in order to get that asset into here. However, if you enter in the bill, it's going to be the date of the bill itself. The purchase price is going to be automatically put in as the net GST price. Warranty expiry. If you have a warranty expiry for that item, you can enter it in here. As far as I know, Xero doesn't warn you if you've gone over that expiry date. It doesn't go, hey, the warranty is expiring on the 21st of July next year for this thing. I don't believe it actually warns you, but at least you can have the details in there to record it against that and maybe run a report that's going to show you that information. We've got the serial number. Serial number can be put in here for the asset. You can't have serial number on inventory items at this point. I don't know if you ever will be able to. I've had a few clients that have got serial numbers on their items and they've actually used the serial number as their inventory item in order to, when they're dealing with inventory items. But here with an asset like this, let's say maybe you're dealing with a laptop like this, or maybe an iPad. If you buy a number of iPads or iPhones for your staff, you might want to put your serial number in there so you can record the serial number with the asset name, so you can determine, you might have 20 different iPhones that you give to staff members. Your asset name is going to be iPhone and the serial number can be recorded in here. The asset type is important because what it does is it pre-populates the information below here with the asset type's information. In the past, you used to be able to just enter these fields in, but now they've got it linked to asset types so that it makes it easier for you to set up and have the same asset types across the 3 different areas. So here for computer equipment, we've got the asset. So when you buy it, the value of the asset is going to computer equipment. We've got the less accumulated depreciation account that's linked to that, and of course the depreciation expense account. So when you do depreciate and run depreciation on these items, it's going to debit the depreciation account, credit the accumulated depreciation account, and when you sell the item, it'll know where to take that item out of in order to reduce the asset value, because of course if you sell the item, you don't own it anymore and therefore it doesn't sit in your assets. You've sold it and you calculate the gain or loss on the sale and off you go. So all of these details here are listed here so you can actually have that information selected for you once you select your asset type. Now if you haven't set up an asset type yet for this, or whatever you've just bought is a car, for example, and it doesn't fit under these 2 items, then you would select new asset type. I'm not going to show you how to do that at this point because I want to show you after this and take you into chart of accounts and show you how to set up the chart of accounts that you need, and then we'll come back in and I'll show you where to set up a new asset type. You can do it in here, or you can also do it in the financial settings. You've got your region here. If you want to track this asset by region or by tracking category, that's what that links to, you can do so. Description, this description here, you can put in here whatever you want about this particular asset. It's an open field that you can put whatever information you want in there. If you haven't seen this little G before, this G is just an app I have installed in my computer called Grammarly, which helps me make sure that when I'm typing things I don't have spelling mistakes and grammatical errors. It's very helpful with all of the writing that I do. So that's what that G is. If you're wondering why it's not in your Xero file, it's not to do with Xero, it's to do with an add-on I have here in my Chrome. All right, the book value down the bottom here, this is where we determine our depreciation start rate. Of course, that's going to be the same as your purchase price unless you pick a different date for whatever reason. If you hit show more options, you've got the ability to put in a cost limit and a residual value. Of course, the cost limit is very important if you're dealing with motor vehicles. The depreciation method, you can pick no depreciation, straight line, diminishing value, where you determine your own percentage, diminishing value 100%, diminishing value 200%, and full depreciation at purchase or write-off, as you might be considering it. You can then determine your averaging method, your rate, and if you don't want rate, you can pick effective life instead of rate. One I said before was the fact that you might have an item for 4 years. You can put in effective life 4 years, or you can put in a rate of 25% as a straight line value. If you don't want to do straight line value, if you want to do diminishing value, then of course you can use whatever rate you need to use in that particular case. I was just using the example of a straight line, which meant that you claimed $500 every single year. Diminishing value works that you're going to claim the depreciation based on the value of the item at the start of that financial year. So from memory, it's been a while since I've had to explain it out loud, but from memory it means that you get more depreciation quicker than if you were in the earlier years than having to take it out equally across each of the 4 years. You get a bit more each year in the earlier years, so that by the end you still get to the same result in the end, that you write off the whole thing, but with diminishing value you get a little bit more depreciated in the first few years of the asset. All right, down the bottom we've got history and notes. History and notes, you can add a note down here at any time. It's going to just be time and date stamped to do with that asset. That might be something like who you given the asset to, who's in possession of the asset, when it's due back, whatever it might be. Again, it's not a searchable field as such to remind you when an asset is due to be returned from someone, or to ensure that you can get that asset back from that person before they leave your employment or anything like that. It's just a note field to tell you where that asset is at. All right. Now, one thing that is not in assets, which used to be here, I noticed today, is the files. In the past, like with the little files button that you used to have with assets, is no longer here within the asset fields, and there's no options to add it. So this happened when there was an upgrade where some extra features were added, but unfortunately the files was taken. So just be aware that you can't add a file to a fixed asset. If you want to, you could use Xero files up here, and in your Xero files you could have a folder for your assets and have a different file for each of your assets if you chose to, or just a fixed assets file and then name the file based on whatever asset it is that you are dealing with. That's the only way I can think of getting around it at this point, that Xero itself doesn't allow you to apply the assets. Some people I was reading earlier today used to take a photo of every single asset and import it into the solution and put it against the fixed asset or their warranty card and details like that. That's the kind of information you can record. However, Xero doesn't have the ability to do that at this point in Xero files anymore against the asset itself. All right, so that was just the details of an asset and showing you what kind of information you can record for an asset. That was Tracy's laptop. I don't think don't know if I need to put any more information in here. I'll just see if I can bulk register that one. Yes, I can. All the information was there. So what I did then was I ticked that asset and just hit register. If you have multiple assets that you need to import and register at once, when you import them, you can import them using this import button here. There's a template there which records all of that information. You can import, although enter all that information into the import spreadsheet template, and then you can import it into Xero. There will be draft assets which you can then select all and register all of them. You just have to make sure you fill in all the required fields in order for the import to work in the first place, and then for you to be able to register those assets in bulk. In the past they didn't used to have that, but now they do, which is fantastic. So you can import your assets if you have many of them. You can bulk register them, and you can of course if you've already been using Xero for a while and you just purchased a new asset, the way that you can get a new asset on your asset register is just by entering in the details on your transaction in the first place, and then you will be able to register those items. So let me quickly show you how that works. We'll just pretend that one of the purchases that we've made recently was for an asset. You might be entering this as a bill in the first place, but I'm just going to do it as a spend money because that's a quick way to go. All right, let's just pretend this one here. We'll say Gateway Motors, and I'm going to put it to office equipment. Now you'll see here I've got office expenses, which is an expense account, office equipment or less accumulated depreciation. As long as I put it to a fixed asset account, which in this case the only fixed asset account is office equipment, then I would put it in there, and then I put in a description in here. That's what's going to give me my my asset name. Now if I hit OK here, it's going to just take that item. If we looked in fixed assets, oh, that didn't work. Why didn't that work? Let me have a look. Hang on a minute. That should have not let me that should have not let me actually accept that item, because I have to put it in a description because it's office equipment. But it accepted the item and therefore didn't ask me what the item was, and therefore didn't put it on my asset. So let's just fix that one up. So here I haven't put a description here. That shouldn't have let me actually do that, but because it's missed it off there. Let's see. I like learning things as we go on these things. In the past that would trigger off something, but you never know. Xero is updating and changing all the time. It looks like you can do that now. Let me just try that one again, and I'll put a description in this time and see if that puts the asset on there. And maybe it's changed and you can't, but let's just have a look. Or maybe it doesn't do it from a spend money anymore. Let's try it. So Gateway Motors, we're definitely putting it to office equipment, and this time we'll just say, let's just pretend it's a let's just say it's a computer. All right, there we go. So in the past, Xero used to not let you assign a transaction to plant and equipment or to a fixed asset account without putting in a description, because then it would stop you from being able to post to that account. But it looks like that's now been removed, and you can now post to a fixed asset account, not put a description in, and that means that amount will still go to the asset register, but it won't put your asset on the asset register. Sorry, your amount will still go to the general ledger of that asset, but it won't actually put the amount on the fixed asset register here as an item unless you put a description in. So as long as you put a description in, that it is going to pre-populate the fixed asset register. If you don't, it means you're going to have to go through your fixed asset register at the end of the year, work out what you bought, when you bought it, how much you bought it, and come in here and manually add a new asset, which you just hit new asset here. But of course, if you get Xero to do it for you, as soon as you have bought the asset, just because you put the description in that Y field or put a description on your bill when you buy something, then it's going to be a hell of a lot quicker to do that than to have to go back and do the job later. All right, so there's our computer item. I'm just going to go into it, apply it to the computer equipment account. I can't bulk register it because I haven't applied it to an asset type yet. So here, if I put it to computer equipment, we have to select a depreciation start date, which will put it the same date as the purchase date, and register. So now we have that item as well on our asset register. So we've now got this one here plus these two other items. Now this depreciation has never been run in this file because it's a demo company. So let me take you through the process of running depreciation. But before we do that, let's just have an understanding of what these asset types is about and where these accounts are actually coming from. Let me just take you to the chart of accounts first of all. And in chart of accounts here, if I go to assets, I can see I've got office equipment and computer equipment and the related accumulated depreciation accounts. Now a common one which a lot of people use, which aren't part of the Xero's default chart of accounts, is motor vehicles. So if we were just to add our motor vehicle accounts, it's as simple as this. We type in fixed asset up the top. We'll use the code 730. You might say motor vehicles at cost, so people don't get confused and think it's expenses. And that's it. That's all we have to fill in the details. You don't have to put the description in, GST on capital. And if we do the depreciation as well, it's also considered a fixed asset type so that it doesn't end up in a different section on your balance sheet. Oh, can type today. Vehicles. And BAS excluded. All right. So that's how we set up our two asset accounts. Now if we want to create an asset type to link to that asset account, I've saved my fixed asset settings. Oh, I did, but it's missing. Let's go to general settings, and here's my fixed assets. And under my fixed assets here, I've got my different asset types. I'm going to create a new asset type, and I'm going to call it motor vehicles. My asset account is motor vehicles at cost. My depreciation account is less accumulated depreciation on motor vehicles. And my depreciation, I could have a separate depreciation account for my different expenses, but I'm just going to put it all under there. My depreciation method, let's just say it's straight line. Averaging method, and we'll say it's going to be, let's do effective life of 10 years. It's a car. Let's take 15. Hit save. And there's our basic details for our asset type. So when we were to add a motor vehicle, we can quickly and easily select that asset type when we're ready to go. Now back in our asset register, we haven't actually got a motor vehicle asset type in here. We've got some computer equipment and some office equipment though. I'm not going to go through each one, but let's just assume that all the details are in there that we need in order to run depreciation. We'll find out in a minute if they're not. Let's go and run depreciation just by pressing that run depreciation button up the top. Oh, it doesn't want me to do that. I think I have to set a start date. Change the start date. I probably don't have any assets back that far. Let's have a look. Let's just run the depreciation all the way to the end of the year, it should pick up some of those assets. There it is. It was just trying to run it for the first month, and I'm pretty sure these assets that I have are only recent ones, because the demo company only puts transactions in for like the last 4 months. So now here, when I run it for the whole year, we could run it for month by month, as you could see, but I'm going to run it for the whole year at once. I've got some depreciation here on my computer equipment and on my office equipment. Here we're only talking small amounts. That does look a little bit too small, actually. Let me go back to my asset register and find out why that's so small, because there was one asset there for $12,000, which I would assume, but maybe it was only just bought in June. Oh, there we go. The reason why it's so low is all of these assets have only been bought in the last few days of June, literally the second last day of June. So being able to run the depreciation to the end of June is only 1 day of depreciation for each of these items, which is why it's so small. That's fine. So we'll just show you the process of doing that. We can't run the depreciation to end of July yet, because it's not the end of July. As soon as it ticks over 1st of August, we'll be able to. So to run depreciation, once all of our assets are in there, all we need to do is hit approve, and now our system has registered those the depreciation on those assets. If we go look at our profit and loss, it's just thinking. If we go look at our profit and loss here, we've got our depreciation for the month. It's just been posted in here. So you can go see that journal in the background if you want to in the manual journals, but Xero is running that depreciation, calculating it for you on a monthly basis or on a daily basis. I believe it changes depending on how many days of the month is being included, and then runs and pushes the journal through for you. You can roll back the depreciation if you need to. If you need to make that change, you can roll it back and redo it again. It'll just reverse the journal and repost it again. Let's say you went through and you forgot to add that other asset on that was still sitting on the draft register, and you needed to add that on, or if you found another one that was posted somewhere else and needed to be included as asset register, then you can do that. All right, so that's the basics around fixed assets. Now, a couple of questions that might come up here for you now. If you are looking for pooling, Xero itself doesn't do asset pooling and low cost asset pools and things like that in Xero itself. From what I understand, the Xero Practice Studio does. I found in online when I was Googling this thing, I'd read in the Xero community. It's here under Xero Business Community. So I read in the Xero Business Community, we've got people back from quite a while ago in 2012, but this is one thread. There's a number of different threads about this issue. In depreciation pool schedules, the Xero's official reply in May, and there was another one similarly in June 2016, so only a month and a half ago, was saying that the development team are currently focused on building pooling. It says if we could push a button and give it to you tomorrow, we certainly would. However, it's a complex feature and there's still a way to go. So pooling is coming into Xero directly at some point, but it's certainly not there yet. However, when you look at Xero Practice Studios, this is for the accountants, for the accountants that are using the Xero Practice Studio, Practice Manager, Xero Tax. There is the ability to put low value pools and in those rates inside Xero Tax. So if you look at this link here, or you probably can't see it on your screen, but I'll just drag it down a bit, practicestudiohelp.xero.com, you'll find the details about how to manage low value pools in Xero Tax. So you can do it in Xero Tax, just not in Xero itself. So the other question that comes up around that, now that we've talked about pooling, is whether you can have an accounting rate and a tax depreciation rate, because some people will have an accounting depreciation rate, but they'll have a completely separate tax depreciation rate in order to gain the greatest tax deductions, but they don't want it to show as that. They don't want to show that their assets have lost that much value in real life on their accounting financials for finance purposes, for example. So you may not want to have the same tax depreciation rate as you do for your accounting records. In order to do that, Xero cannot do accounting and tax depreciation and pooling. It can only do pooling inside Xero Tax. It can only do the accounting or the tax depreciation inside Xero. You'd probably put your accounting depreciation inside Xero and go from there. So that sort of opens us to, okay, well, what is our other choices when it comes to wanting to manage those things until Xero builds that functionality in later on, which I'm sure it will. If they're building in pooling, I'm sure they'll build in accounting and tax depreciation at some point as well. Or maybe they'll just leave tax depreciation inside Xero Tax and leave the accounting inside the accounting. Who knows? I don't know, and I don't work for Xero. All I'm doing is telling you what I do know. Now, what I have here, what I did come across is an app called Asset Guru. It's actually asset.guru is the website. And this is one of the add-ons that was actually an article in issue 7 of Xero, of the XU magazine. And we've got in issue 7 of XU magazine, had Chris Peterson, the CEO of Asset Guru, talking about the concept of rethinking asset management and how it's not actually just about depreciation. And in this article, he talks about managing assets as being a pesky administrative task, and that it's not really something that anyone really worries about it or puts much value on, because it's all just to do with, what your accountant does at the end of the financial year. But what he talks about is the fact that when a company reaches $2 million in annual revenues, it's likely to have around $50,000 in lost or ghost assets. And there's a picture here inside the magazine on page 75 of someone standing in front, a worker standing in front of a whole bunch of tools. And that had me thinking about the fact of, well, when you're talking about assets, from an accounting point of view, yeah, you've got your accounting depreciation managed inside Xero. However, when you're talking about something like Asset Guru, what you're actually talking about is some of the extra functionality Xero doesn't have. Asset Guru has the ability to calculate your tax and your accounting depreciation. Let me just log in here and I will show you. I just downloaded a trial and I thought I'd show you a little bit around. System before, but I did log in and wanted to see the difference between what this can do plus what Xero can do. So Asset Guru, the couple of things that I noticed was that you can have your when you add an asset, your asset register and all of that information is reasonably the same, but when you create a new asset, you can have the images that you need. Certainly you've got your asset name and descriptions, and you can have images that you need. You can record the location of that asset, where it actually is, and see that on a map. That might be obviously for some of your bigger assets, but even your smaller assets, you can still record the holder of those items. You've got your financial information, which you can handle in multi-currency as well as you can with Xero. You've got the different asset types and values written in here, as well as being able to record part numbers, barcodes, warranty expiry codes, iBeacon code, replacement date, previous owner and serial number. So you've got a few more options in there that Xero has that you can record, and you can also drop in multiple files if you need to. So if you have manuals, manuals, photos, warranty cards, all sorts of different files, you can attach it directly to that asset. But what this does here inside Asset Guru, and I won't pretend to be an expert by any means of all the things that Asset Guru can do. You can certainly have a look at that and also go to their site and book in a free demo with them to get your own trial, but that also gives you the access to a free demo that they will personally demonstrate to you once you go to the site. But reading Chris's article inside XU magazine in issue 7, what he's talking about, the fact is, imagine how many iPhones, let's say you give iPhones or iPads to your employees, even if you have 20 employees, right? In keeping track of the 20 iPhones that you gave to each of those people, their serial numbers, where they actually are, who you gave them to, when they have to come back, if those items are actually what's come back, what their warranty period is, all those different things. I'm guessing now you're either not tracking it or you're doing it in a spreadsheet, and you've got a whole bunch of administrative tasks that you need to do if you ever need to look up those assets. And unless you're doing it in a spreadsheet and recording all that information in there, there's no true real idea of how to manage those assets, let alone servicing, if you're not dealing with phones, etc., but maybe servicing different items, different tools, knowing who you've actually transferred them to, how long they're going to be there for, when they're going to be back. any of those assets. If you're dealing with the $2 million turnover, you've got things like technology assets like that, tools that you're assigning to people, all sorts of other things that you might be doing, resources that need to be managed, machinery that needs to be serviced. Asset Guru can handle those areas for you. It's not about just doing accounting and tax depreciation, which a lot of people will go, oh, I'll just do accounting and Xero and I'll do the tax separately. It's actually so much more than that, and being able to help you manage those assets across all of your different employees and all of your different locations of business. So that's the difference between Asset Guru, and I'm sure they could give you much more information, but it was just a very interesting piece of information that I wanted to share with you so you could see the difference between the two and make a decision from there, or find out more if you hadn't heard of them before. All right. If you want to have a read of that article of what part of what I've read through so far, you can find it on xumagazine.com under issue 7. And as I mentioned before, access to XU Magazine is free. You can get your free or print edition sent anywhere in the world by selecting this button here on the website, or going to XU Magazine and selecting subscribe for free. All right. Now I'm just going to check if we have any questions. We haven't had any questions come up during this session so far. If you have any questions, you can certainly send them through now. I don't have anything else that I wanted to cover with you in relation to fixed assets. So if you've had any questions about fixed assets, then of course you can enter those questions in the question panel. If you don't, then that's fine as well. If you have any other questions around Xero or the add-ons, feel free to enter them in the chat panel. Or you can contact us via Twitter afterwards using the hashtag, the @ symbol, I should say, Xero users or XU Magazine. Or you can, of course, email us at hello@XU Magazine, and they can get in touch with me should they not be able to help you directly if it's a technical question. All right, you can watch this recording back here on live stream for the next 30 days, or you can watch it on our YouTube channel, XU Magazine. This Xero User Hour does run every 1 o'clock, every Wednesday, Sydney time in Australia. If you have an idea for us of the topic that you want us to talk about next time, contact us during those channels that I mentioned, or of course you can subscribe on YouTube and comment on any of our videos on there and let us know what you would like to see from us next Xero User Hour. Have a fantastic day, everybody. If any other further questions come through, I'll answer them, but otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you next Xero User Hour, 1 p.m. Next Wednesday, Sydney time. Have a fantastic day, everybody. Bye.